I think John Law is one of the most interesting, influential people who history has almost forgotten. John Law was born in 1671 in Scotland. He was one of 12 children, and his father was a goldsmith. They would also issue loans, paper loans, backed by the gold that they held in their reserves. So Law, as a young man, he watched his father. His father was pretty successful, built up this very successful business in Edinburgh. He went to school. He was gifted mathematically. He was very charming. He was very handsome. The ladies loved him. There were two strands to him, a very brilliant mind, but also a slightly wayward streak to him. And when his father died, he was only 17, and he made his way to London. And he was socially ambitious, and with all his sort of personal charm, he ingratiated himself into high society. And one of the ways he did that really was by gambling, because he met aristocrats and people in power around the gaming tables. He moved in with a woman called Mrs. Lawrence, and we don't really know very much about her. But what we do know is that it ended in a quarrel with another beau of the day called Beau Wilson. And they fought a duel, and Law ran Wilson through with his sword. The only way to actually escape the noose was to somehow bribe his jailers, and he managed to get out and make his way to France and to the continent. He was looking at how the Italians worked their finances, how money was lent, how you could help business by providing credit. So when Queen Anne came to the throne, he came back to Scotland and he petitioned Anne for a pardon. And at the same time, he proposed a bank which was backed by land, that you would produce paper money backed by land, which he thought was a very safe way of increasing money supply. He never got off the ground with that one. So then he made another petition with a paper called Money and Trade Considered. And in it, he explains that money does not have to be intrinsically valuable. It's about what it represents. An estate bank, like in Amsterdam, backed by gold, and against that gold, paper money would be produced. He decided he would emulate the Dutch and the Dutch East India Company and try and really expand the French colonial trade. And the French already owned a huge tract of North America from Mississippi right up to the top of Canada, which really hadn't been exploited. So how were they going to capitalize it? By creating a company in which investors could buy shares. And so he was granted this right to start the what we now know as the Mississippi Company. Law was eager for people to buy his shares, so the bank would lend money, and you could even pay in instalments so that you could buy the shares. And so the printing presses had to sort of produce all this extra money and huge amounts of money supply. The money supply was enormously expanded at that time. You've also got very sort of people from the provinces coming in. You've got footmen buying shares, or somebody sending their footman to buy shares. Daniel Defoe, who wrote Robinson Crusoe, happened to be in Paris at the time, and he said, money just flows like the waters of the Seine, you know, and women could buy the most expensive clothes. Every luxury went up in price. You get inflation coming. You can't get your carriage down the road to where you want to go to buy your shares, because the shares were all traded in a little road in Paris called Rue Quincampoix. Half the people who went out there had died. You know, it was a swampy, the people got malaria, the Indians attacked them. It was not going to produce money in the way that they'd hoped and expected. The price of shares went down. One of the results was sort of huge civil unrest. There were riots in the street, there was shortages of staples, people stockpiled food, the prices went up. Law tried to go out of his house, he was bombarded. You know, his wife went to visit a friend, her carriage was pelted. They were in fear of their lives. He ended his days really impoverished, separated from his wife, who he never saw again, just living a life in Venice, trying to exonerate himself. I think one of the things that you learn from John Law is that money is about confidence. He printed money without limit, and then realised too late what the effects of that would be and how damaging it could be.